What up, my madness society? It is your host with the most, Shadow Loke, back at you with another video. Make sure you guys like, comment, and are subscribed to the channel. That is how you help my channel get into the algorithm. I'd highly appreciate if you go ahead and do that. You know what I mean? Join the madness society. It's absolutely free. But before I get started, shout out to the homie Dopey from Vincent Town. That's his artwork in the background. Homie has a lot of talent. You know what I mean? Try to plug him in. Maybe somebody's looking for some artwork or something like that. Just let me know. And to the homie Repo out of Dead End Harpies too, for his artwork on there too, right? These individuals have a lot of talent. Who says that Raza don't got talent? These guys got talent. But I wanted to talk about was I got in a debate, right, with an individual, right, who's came and said that why am I lying, right, and glorifying gangster life. And I said, how so? Because obviously discussing something, right, and breaking down the understanding of something is different from idolizing and glorifying, right? But I get it. It's people's own biased opinions that don't allow them to separate the two, right? Because they view the life in some type of way that automatically they just rush to conclusions, right? Because of what has been put out there and the media has fed them for years, right? No doubt that gangs are bad, obviously, right? And you get nothing out of the lifestyle. Very true, right? But I do not come and lie, and I could only tell it how it is. You don't have to believe me. I'm not here to convince you. That's not my job. I am just here to give my opinions, right? And to call it how it is, right? And his thing is that why do I say, and others say that, try to say that gangs started over some righteous cause, right? That gangs started over, that there was a good intentions of why these neighborhoods started, right? That's all a lie. And here's the thing. Barrios, the reason why neighborhoods started, you could believe it if you want. It's all on you, bro. You know what I mean? You can only call the facts. The reason why barrios started was that back then was different times, right? When Chicano gangs, first started sprouting out, right? Like Dogtown and Macy Street and Alpine and barrios like that, right? Dating back to the 1800s. Yes, Sureño gangs do go back that far back, right? So since the 1800s, barrios like that, Macy's, Dogtown, Alpine, Loma, were around, right? And the reason why these gangs started, right, these Chicano barrios started, was that these were different times that we live in now, right? Los Angeles was a whole completely different place back then. How so? One, you hardly had minorities here. There wasn't so many raza how you see now. How you see nowadays, you see nothing but Mexicans everywhere. Back then, that was not the case. Back then, you see nothing but whites everywhere. You were the minorities, bro. You were heavily outnumbered by Caucasians, right? I should say more of Americans. You were outnumbered by Americans, right? Because Anglo-Saxons, Celtics, Caucasians, and all, them were being discriminated against as well, right? By Americans, right? Because they seen these guys as illegals, right? Whether they were coming from Italy or they were coming from Ireland, it doesn't matter to them. They seen them as illegals, right? That they don't belong in this country, right? They don't care if they share the same skin color, right? That's always been the American way. Until, they seen that the tables were flipping and decided, well, if I'm gonna align myself with somebody, I might as well align myself with this, at least with this person, because we have the same skin color. Because the numbers were now starting to go against them, right? So before in these times, you were the minority, right? Who were being mistreated, because you have to remember that it wasn't just only blacks that were being discriminated against and lynched and all that, but also raza. Raza was suffering the same thing as blacks, right? Sitting behind the bus, not able to drink out of the same drinking fountain, being mistreated, right? Not just the blacks were going through that, but also the raza. Raza was also getting beat up, hogtied, and dragged off people's trucks. All of this was occurring. I know that the history books don't cover it, but like I said, always educate yourself because they are only going to want to show you what they want to show you. I don't make up anything. You can go and look up this yourself. You get what I'm saying? That I only come knowing that people could just go and research what I'm talking about. This is all facts. Now, they were being discriminated against, as well, right? Not only that, but back then, how these barrios even came into existence, right? Sprouted, was that back then, minorities were not just allowed to live wherever they wanted. Like, you weren't allowed to live wherever you wanted or own property or none of that. You know? They picked certain sections in which you guys were allowed to live and, roam around and do your thing. This is not a lie. This is not made up shit. This is real facts. People were only allowed to live in certain areas, blacks and Hispanics, right? You guys were only allowed to live in certain sections away from these individuals, right? Away from the white man, right? And these areas were neglected. And these areas, was no work. People would drive from, the suburbs to go and pick and bully these individuals, right? All of this was occurring. So these individuals started banding together and forming groups in order to defend themselves. That is not a lie. That is not made up. I'm not here to, push some kind of propaganda to show these individuals as a noble cause or show this lifestyle as a noble cause. No. All right? There's nothing noble about it. You get nothing out of the street life. It's bad. But at the same time, I cannot lie. That is the reason why these gangs started. Now, but hold on. Just because that is the reason why these barrios started doesn't mean that that's what they are now, right? What it was then and what it is now is two completely different things. What motivated and drove the gangs before, it is not at the motivation and drive that it is today. Right? So don't try to mix the two and try to say that, no, well, they got to be lying or they got to be lying. What it is that it has mutated and evolved as time has gone. Just like anything else, right? Just like when people try to say there ain't no blacks in East LA. There used to be blacks in East LA a lot, right? But as times, going by, geographics start changing and people start moving and, like with everything, time changes everything, bro. Right? Just like people can say, how is there gangs like in areas like Downey or Burbank or these areas that are lovely now, right? But just that wasn't how it was back then. Back then, it was a whole different ballgame. As time has gone by, they gentrified areas and all this and that. So just because people see it lovely now doesn't mean that that's how it would always was, right? And that is where people get the misconception about certain areas or how could gangs exist in some of these areas. Because those areas weren't always nice, right? And just like how people could say, well, who was bullying these people if there's nothing but raza all over? Before, this place was heavy populated with whites, bro. You were heavily, and I mean heavily, outnumbered by Americans. Now, and as time going by and more people started coming, more raza started coming, here and stuff like that, these whites started moving to different areas, because they didn't want to be around, these individuals. So they started moving to other different states, right? And now that's why you see nothing but raza around. But that back then, like I said, this was a stronghold for groups like the KKK and all of that. And they used to have Nazi parades and all of that here. And the streets would be packed like this with a lot of these individuals. You get what I mean? So groups like that were already around before these Hispanic gangs. White gangs were around before the Hispanic gangs. Well, they weren't called white gangs. They were called groups, like the Shining Knights and the KKK and groups like that, right? And they would go out and hunt for these individuals before these individuals even had a name to them and stuff like that, right? When they were just a group of kids that would, hang out and just be chilling. And so these individuals started now, banding together and forming their own groups, right? Based off of the area in which they're at is the name and title that they chose to represent, right? That's even before they had nicknames, because that's why they all went just by their normal names. And it wasn't until these groups started committing crimes, right? That now people started calling each other by different names because, they were getting, found out by the cops because, people were saying their real names, like, oh, well, I don't know where he lives, but his name is so-and-so and he goes to this school. So they would drive to that and get that kid out. So that's why they started using nicknames. That way, they weren't able to be, found out, right? When people are calling them and over and stuff like that, they were saying their nicknames instead of their real names now. That is why nicknames started coming into the picture, right? And why the dress code started changing as well. Because before you were able to be out there with chains and bats and all of that, but then the laws changed where you couldn't just be out there with weapons, so you had to conceal them. So they started using bigger clothes to conceal their weapons, right? But that's a different topic for a different day. So these barrios started for this reason, and as time goes by, the bullied became the bulliers. Because power influences, power corrupts. So these individuals are no different. Now it's time for us to do the bullying, and now it's time for us to, we're tired of getting stepped on. It's time for us now to do the stepping. Even if it now is doing it to your own, because that's the reason why you guys banded together, because they were doing that to you guys. So why would you do it to your own, right? But because of the power, the drugs, and the alcohol that came into the picture, and of course, the match itself, the thing that always sparks this whole, cocktail to begin with, the money. As soon as the money came into the picture, it was game over. Because you already know, as soon as money gets put into anything, it starts to just rot and corrupt everything. Greed, right? It's crazy. And these gangs now started, their motivational drive was something completely different. Greed, power, money, all of that, right? They lost themselves in their fight. They're not the only ones. A lot of people lose themselves in their fight. So does Cesar Chavez, It's humanity, right? Humanity has flaws. Humans have flaws. Power always corrupts, right? Doesn't matter if it's gang members, politicians, law enforcement, right? You give somebody power, it tends to corrupt. Too much of a good thing is something that humanity in itself cannot handle, right? Too much knowledge makes you arrogant and stubborn, Too much sex makes you a pervert. Too much food makes you vomit. Too much alcohol, has you behaving stupidly. You know what I mean? Too much of a good thing tends to corrupt man. We don't know how to handle good things, right? You gotta limit yourselves. But, so I am not lying when I come and talk about why these battles started, or this culture started to begin with. These individuals didn't come to this country and just automatically wanted to fuck shit up. They were pushed to a corner, did what they had to do in order to survive, and then shit went south. Right? That's why I say that this life is not worth it. You get nothing out of it. It's better to stay in school and educate yourself. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to lie about why these individuals or why this life started to begin with. It's not glorifying. It's not justifying. It's simply breaking down and understanding the mental and why things happen. Because lying about something, despite what it is never good. You get nothing out of lying. And I refuse to lie. Now, you may not like it. You may not even believe it. It's all fine. I'm not here to convince you. I'm only here to simply speak my opinion and call it for how it is. But that's just overall my opinion. What do you guys think? Leave it in the comments. Shadow, we out.